Hey everyone, Rich Gasaway here with another reminder about the Situational Awareness Matters Online Academy. The Academy is fully operational now and accepting student enrollments. This is really exciting for me. There are almost 600 students enrolled in the Academy, and we've already had 10 students graduate. And in case if you're wondering if graduating means just paying money and clicking through a bunch of screens, I'm really sorry, that's not exactly how my Academy works. You see, when I put my name on something, like an Academy graduate certificate, it means you've committed yourself to learning this content. And a commitment it is. There are 14 courses, and you'll have to demonstrate that you've learned the content by passing 14 exams with a score of at least 70%. Of course, if you're not concerned about having a graduate certificate, you don't have to worry about passing the exams. But honestly, this is not the Academy for you if you're not genuinely interested in taking your understanding of situational awareness and high-risk decision-making to a higher level. But if you are interested, come along for the ride, and I guarantee you'll learn something that you have never been taught before, unless, of course, you've attended one of my live 3-day training events. Let me share a few comments with you that I've received recently from Academy graduates. This one from Dan Gallard says, "Truly enjoyable. As a novice firefighter, it has opened my eyes to a bigger picture and my personal need to completely size up a situation myself while waiting for a directive or an assignment. I appreciate how Dr. Gasaway uses what he teaches and how he uses repetition throughout the Academy to reinforce material while slowly adding and building in new content. Thank you." Well, thank you, Dan, for sharing that kind feedback. This one from Jared Brigante, and I'm sorry, Jared, if I chopped that up. But Jared said, "This is a pretty awesome training program you've developed for us. I hope one day that I can have you teach it live for our department." Well, thank you, Jared, for that kind feedback. And from Adam Howard. Adam said, "This is a really good class, and I learned even more than I did during the live classroom program that you did in North Carolina last year. Great stuff." Thank you, Adam. We had a great program there in Durham with over 100 attendees in that session. I feel really good about having the Academy available for the fire service now because for the first time, this powerful training on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making is both convenient and affordable. Don't get me wrong, I always love the high energy and amazing interaction I have with students at live events. That is, without a doubt, the single most powerful way to get this training. During the live events, participants become part of the teaching process as I use adult-facilitated learning techniques to draw out the participants' experience. If you're interested in learning more about the SA Matters Online Academy, visit samatters.com and click on the green button on the right side of the homepage labeled Online Academy. Today's episode is sponsored by Midwest Fire. For more than 20 years, Midwest Fire has been manufacturing high-quality tankers, tanker pumpers, and fire rescue vehicles in the United States and Canada. Keeping firefighters safe while enhancing their capabilities is what they do best. To learn more, go to MidwestFire.com. Hello, and welcome to episode 149 of the Situational Awareness Matters radio show. I'm your host, Rich Gasaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence environments. The SA Matters mission is simple: to help you see the bad things coming in time to avoid bad outcomes. I mentioned in a previous episode that we were closing in on our 200,000th download of this podcast show. In the words of Harry Carey, holy cow, that's huge. When I launched this show back in 2014, I had my doubts if anyone would even subscribe and listen to what I had to share. I guess that question's been answered. In the month of February, we've already had over 20,000 downloads in 1 month. What the heck's that all about? Holy cow. If you haven't subscribed yet to the show, go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio and search for SA Matters Radio. That's SA Matters Radio. There's also a link on the podcast page on the SA Matters website if you want to listen there. If you like the podcast, go to iTunes or Stitcher Radio and give it a rating and a review. That would mean so much to me. Thank you. Hey, here's another idea. If you know of a company that would like to get their message into the ears of my podcast listeners, ask them to contact me. I have one amazing podcast sponsor now, Midwest Fire, who, by the way, has been the sponsor of this show for almost 3 years. It must be working for him, right? Think about that. Anyhow, if you can think of someone with a product or a service that is valued by the first responder community, ask them to contact me. Oh, here's another thing. We're closing in on another amazing milestone. Coming up in episode 156. That will mark the 3-year anniversary of this show. I release a new episode every Tuesday. And I have, without fail, done so for 3 consecutive years. A lot of podcasters suffer from something known as in the podcasting industry as pod fade. They get some inspiration about how they're going to change the world and they want to launch a podcast. And it's easy to do. The barrier to entry is really low. It's not hard to launch a podcast. But it is quite time consuming. I put in 2 to 3 hours a week writing scripts for each show, recording and editing and aligning guests. But entry is not hard. And then once these podcasters record a few episodes, and in some cases maybe a few dozen episodes, they fade away. They lose their interest, or they move on to the next shiny object or their next big topic. That's not me. I've been sharing this message of situational awareness with first responders for 12 years now. I'm here for the long run, and for so long as I'm able, I'm going to continue to share this message, a message of hope, a message of inspiration, a message of encouragement for first responders who want to make sure they're able to develop and maintain strong situational awareness and make quality, high-risk decisions. This show's for you and dedicated to help improve your safety and your survival. And truthfully, there's nothing I would rather be doing. And speaking of sharing the message, I'm coming to you today from Clovis, California, where I'm in town to deliver a 1-day situational awareness program for the firefighters of Clovis, Fresno, Sanger, Porterville, Visalia, and other departments in the region. Sorry about that. The turnout was amazing for today's class, and the participation in the discussion was very inspiring to me. Thank you to Battalion Chief Brett Black and Fire Chief John Banaski for the invite and the wonderful hospitality during my visit. As you know, my mission is focused primarily on helping first responders improve situational awareness and high-risk decision-making. But every once in a while, I get contacted by businesses, industry, medical facilities, and in the case of last week, the military, to help with situational awareness. I want to thank the men and women of the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, and especially Dennis Cormier, and the other members of the training and quality assurance team for inviting me to your facility. As I was at the shipyard, I realized there was an ironic twist of fate occurring that was completely coincidental, but nonetheless extremely cool. One of my previous consulting customers was a company in Tennessee named Nuclear Fuel Services. They prepare the uranium that powers the nuclear submarines that I was now standing among in Portsmouth. And then another one of my previous customers was Babcock and Wilcox, and they manufacture the nuclear reactors that go into the nuclear submarines that I was now standing among in Portsmouth. And now I was working with the dedicated men and women who service and maintain this fleet of nuclear submarines as I stood there in Portsmouth. I can hardly bring to words how amazing that felt, to know the brave men and women serving in the United States Navy to protect our freedoms around the world were on those nuclear submarines, depending on the maintenance, the nuclear reactors, and the uranium that employees that I had trained had a hand in providing. Thanks be to God for providing me with such an important and meaningful mission. One of the questions I get asked a lot by readers and listeners is, when are you coming to my area? I want to attend a program. Or where are you going to be next? Great questions, and the answers are really easy to find out. There's a link for the upcoming events right on the homepage of SA Matters. Just click on the blue box on the right side labeled Upcoming Events Schedule. And if you're interested in hosting a Situational Awareness Matters tour stop in 2017 for your department or your association or your region or your state or your company, just contact me through the samatters.com site. Click on the Contact Us tab. We'll get something set up for you. It's not a hard process, I promise. But don't wait. I already have 64 booked and proposed programs in 2017, so my available dates are starting to thin out. And I have proposals out to do programs in the Netherlands and in Australia. And if both of those come through, I'll be gone for about a month. And I suspect this work with the Navy that I did last week is going to lead to some additional opportunities on the military basis too. Whew. Thankfully, I have some awesome master instructors trained to assist me with this load. But if you want to get something scheduled, swing by the SA Matters website, click on the Contact Us tab. Oh, and I should mention, if you want to save some money on hosting a program, and who doesn't want to save some money, right? Here's a tip for how you can host a program at a reduced cost. I schedule many what I call companion programs. These are programs on adjoining days to other programs. So if you see I'm delivering a program within a couple hours of your department, and you think you might want to tag along as a companion, just contact me. You can save as much as 20% off the program cost when you're a companion to an existing program. I do about 30 of those a year, and no one ever complains about getting a discount. Figure that out. That's what I call a true win-win. Okay, in today's feature segment, I'm going to talk about mind drift and the impact it can have on your situational awareness. And stick around. When the feature segment is done, I will tell you where you can attend an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stop events. Who knows, maybe there will be one in your state or your county, and we'll be able to meet up. All right, let's jump into our feature segment on mind drift. Before we get into mind drift, let's start with defining what situational awareness is, in case you're a new listener. Situational awareness is the ability to perceive and understand what is happening in the environment around you in the context of how time is passing, and then be able to take that understanding and make an accurate prediction of future events, hopefully in time to avoid bad outcomes. So essentially there's three component parts to situational awareness: perception, understanding, and prediction. I want to go back to the beginning with the perception part, because as we talk about mind drift, what we're talking about is something that's going to lead to mind drift called sensory conflict. Sensory conflict means the inputs coming into the brain from two or more of the senses are not in agreement with each other. For example, the eye sees something that says, what is going on here is A. But at the same time, the ears hear something that say, no, what is going on here is B. Now we've got a problem, because inside the brain is going to try to piece together the puzzles to have them, the puzzle pieces to have them make sense. But there are puzzle pieces coming in from the eyes and puzzle pieces coming in from the ears that will not fit together because it was different and conflicting information. This creates some confusion inside the brain, and the brain really doesn't like confusion, especially when you're working in a high-risk situation, because the brain knows that you have to be totally on spot in a high-risk situation to ensure your survival. So the brain really tries to resolve this confusion quickly, because that confusion could represent a threat to your survival. So the way the brain tries to resolve this confusion quickly is it will dispatch a bunch of resources to the scene of this crash being where the puzzle pieces are not fitting together properly. And the brain's resources are going to try to figure out how to get the visual information and the audible information to kind of fit together and make sense. So just think of it as a bunch of neuronal responders on the scene of a working incident trying quickly to resolve this conflict, extricate the damage from the scene and get it to the hospital, as we want to use it as a medical kind of example. And all the resources are working there. And as the resources are on this scene working to resolve this, your mind can drift out of consciousness. That's called mind drift. You're physically present, but you're not consciously present. Your eyes are open, looking around. Your ears are open, listening around, but you're not really processing the meaning of the things that you're seeing and you're hearing, because your mind is, all the attention in your mind is focused on trying to get that conflict resolved. When this happens, your subconscious programming can kick in based on your training and your experience and perform the task automatically. You don't really have to pay attention visually and audibly. Your automatic performance kicks in, or what I call automaticity. The mind will drift out of consciousness many times every day. Maybe even during this podcast, your mind will shift out of consciousness, especially if you're listening to the podcast while you're doing something else. That something else can capture your attention, and you'll find yourself no longer listening to the podcast. And then you might have to hit the rewind button and listen to something over again. No harm in that, right? Except on an incident scene, there's no pause button. There's no rewind, and there's no replay. You've perhaps thinking you've never let your mind drift out of consciousness while you've been performing a high-risk activity, right? If you're doing something high-risk, high-consequence, you're all in, completely paying attention. You're not going to let yourself drift out of this consciousness and put yourself at that kind of risk, right? Well, not exactly. That's more of a wish than a fact. In fact, your mind can drift while you're doing a high-risk activity, and it has for many of us, if not all of us. During my live programs, when I get to this point in the conversation, I'll ask this question of my students. I'll say, raise your hand if you have ever driven your car somewhere, arrived at your destination, and then wondered to yourself, how did I get here? And inevitably, almost every hand will go up with some laughter. How does that happen? How can you drive your car somewhere and not be paying attention to the act of driving? That's a high-risk, high-consequence activity. But yet, your mind will drift off the task of driving. Physically, you're in the car, eyes open, ears open, but you're not paying attention anymore to the act of driving the car. And that's risky, because you're driving your car among other drivers whose minds have also drifted as well. And they're not consciously paying attention to the act of driving. When this happens, your subconscious mind picks up the slack and starts driving for you. That is, if you have high-quality stored scripts about how to drive a car. Everything will work out fine so long as the real-world surroundings don't veer off the script. In other words, a car doesn't pull out in front of you and then you immediately have to figure out what to do because you're not used to reacting when a car pulls out in front of you. On an emergency scene, it'll all work out okay as long as what you're doing follows the scripts of your training. But if it veers off the script, and then you have to be jolted back into consciousness, there can be a delay. That delay is what we call reaction time. When your mind drifts, you're no longer paying attention, at least at the conscious level, to the things that are happening around you. And when this happens, situational awareness will be impacted because the foundation of situational awareness, where it all begins, is perception. The act of paying attention to what is happening around you and capturing that information so that you can make sense about what's happening around you, so that you can make accurate predictions of future events, hopefully in time to avoid bad outcomes. Okay, as I always do, I want to take a moment to thank the departments and organizations that have hosted some great training for their members on situational awareness. I do this to show my appreciation to the organizations that have put forth the effort to organize, advertise, and fund great training experiences for their members and other departments in their region. Your efforts to bring this valuable and powerful training on situational awareness and high-risk decision-making to your members and others in your region are greatly appreciated. Recent tour stops included the Racine County Fire Chiefs Association in Wisconsin, the Texas Fire Educators Association Conference in Corpus Christi, Texas, the Kansas Incident Management Team Conference in Salina, Kansas, Morris Fire Department in Minnesota, the Portsmouth Naval Yard in New Hampshire, and where I am now, at the Clovis Fire Department in California. If you're interested in attending an upcoming Situational Awareness Matters Tour Stop event, you can catch me on March 3rd in Lynchburg, Virginia, March 6th and 7th in Mountain Iron, Minnesota, March 8 and 9 in Lutsen, Minnesota, March 14 in Towson, Maryland, where I'll be doing a program for the Maryland Fire Rescue Institute National Fire Service Staff and Command Program. I'm really proud. This is my 15th consecutive year doing the program for MIFRE. March 16th in Beaver County, Pennsylvania. March 18th in Cranberry, Pennsylvania. That's a companion program, as I mentioned earlier. March 28th, Blue Springs, Missouri. March 30th, Lancaster, Texas. April 1 and 2 in Richland, Washington for the Washington Hazmat Association Conference. April 7th, Medford, Oregon for the Oregon Fire Training Officers. April 15th, New Richmond, Wisconsin. April 20th, Penticton, British Columbia. April 22nd, Creston, British Columbia. April 24th, Michigan City, Indiana. April 25th, Indianapolis, Indiana. And on May 2nd, for the Incident Management Team of the Fire Department of the City of New York. If you want to see the locations of all the upcoming Situational Awareness Matters tour stops, head over to the SA Matters website, click on the blue box on the right side of the homepage labeled Upcoming Events Schedule. The schedule is always changing, so check back often. The last time I was delivering situational awareness programs in southwest Minnesota, I stopped by and visited my sponsor of this podcast show, Midwest Fire. Midwest Fire makes amazing, all poly-bodied fire apparatus. It's changing the industry. You seriously need to check them out at MidwestFire.com. Anyhow, I got a chance to sit down and talk to a few of their employees about what separates Midwest Fire from their competitors. Let's listen into a conversation that I had with engineer Tyler LeBrun about what differentiates Midwest Fire from their competitors. So, Tyler, what differentiates the manufacturing process here at Midwest Fire as, say, compared to the competitors who build fire trucks as well? What makes you stand out in comparison?
I don't really know exactly what kind of systems the other competitors have in place, but the one thing that I really think that sets us apart that I've seen in the side of the manufacturing field is trying to implement and adhere to some different lean ideologies, and that being said, lean manufacturing really helps us deliver a better quality product more efficiently with less waste to the customer. And also on the other side of that, I think the team that we have here, our manufacturing team and all the people that we have, with the way we work together, the teamwork that we have, and everybody's positive attitude, and it may sound kind of cliche, but the can-do spirit that we have, I think, really helps us, separate ourselves from the competition.
But I think one thing too that I noticed when we were touring around on the shop floor is, as I looked around, I didn't see hundreds of employees. This is not a company that employs hundreds of people. It's an employee it's a company that employs a small number of employees with a great deal of dedication, and obviously that lends some to this teamwork and this sense of family that is going on here that might actually be an asset compared to a large company where an employee just might be a number.
Exactly, most definitely, and that's something that we see is all of our employees are able to work together to build these trucks, because it's not something that they're just going to sit in their station and only do their work. If they see that somebody else needs help, they're going to go over there and help them do that, help them get ahead in their part of the process so that the product can keep flowing through the manufacturing floor.
Nice, thank you. So that's really example of what separates Midwest Fire on the manufacturing side from their competitors. So check them out at MidwestFire.com. Thank you to Midwest President Sarah Atchison and all your staff for your awesome commitment to improving first responder safety. I sincerely appreciate your support of my mission. If you want to send me feedback about the podcast or anything else about my mission, I'd love to hear from you. Just visit the SA Matters website and click on the Contact Us tab at the top of the page. Or you can shoot me a message on Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn. If you're not a member of the SA Matters community of learners, consider joining. There are over 5,000 members connected on SA Matters, sharing ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, how to train members to be critical thinkers and resilient problem solvers. Membership is free. Got that? Free. When you sign up, I'll send you a special report that I've created for the new members called 25 Best Practices for Improving First Responder Safety. Joining also gets you my monthly email newsletter that contains featured content from the blog and the podcast. That's really just a way for us to stay in touch with each other. If you're not a member yet, head over to the SA Matters website, click on the red box on the right side of the homepage. That's the red box that says free membership. If you want to get connected with me on Twitter, you can follow @Rich Gasaway on Twitter. On LinkedIn, you can search for Rich Gasaway on LinkedIn. On YouTube, you can watch my videos on the SA Matters TV YouTube channel. And on Facebook, you can find me at the SA Matters page on Facebook. You might be wondering, why in the world do I have so many platforms? The blog, the podcast, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Online Academy, live events, books, videos. Holy cow, what is this all about? Because I know that not every first responder consumes their content the same way, on the same platform, and I'm trying to reach all first responders on whatever platform they prefer most. Well, that's it. Episode 149 is complete. Thank you to our awesome podcast sponsor, Midwest Fire. Thank you to all of our live event hosts. Thank you to the more than 500 Online Academy students. And thank you, our listeners, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters radio show with Dr. Richard B. Gasaway. If you are interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit samatters.com. If you are interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for an upcoming event, visit his personal website at richgasaway.com.